Hi, everybody. I am Kevin Ioli, and my next guest is one of the most popular fighters in the New York area. And I think when you get a chance to see her fight, both boxing and MMA, she is going to become one of the most popular fighters in the country. Heather the Heat Hardy. Heather is fighting Ana Julaton on a Bellator MMA show, Bellator 194, on Friday on the Paramount Network in Mohegan Sun. How are you, Heather?
Oh, what an introduction. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Well, you are 20-0 in boxing, 1-1 in MMA, and you have a really unique deal that let's start with. You're going to fight Ana Julaton, a former world champion in boxing, um, but you're fighting her in MMA first, and then you're going to do boxing. Tell me the genesis of this. How did this come about, and why both? Why not just boxing?
Well, I think that the whole fight started because right before my last fight, it was like the day before my weigh-in, and I was going into the back room and signing all my papers, and I was like hungry and tired and cranky and everything, like right before the weigh-in. And one reporter stopped me in the hallway and said, "Oh, I just did an article with Anna. Anna was fighting on the same Bellator show as I was. She was fighting someone else." And he says, "I'd love to get your response." And I was like, what response? And the title of the article was like, Heather Hardy, you can run, but you can't hide.
Wow.
And I'm like, like hungry, tired, cranky. And I'm from Brooklyn. Like, you talk that smack to me. So I just went off the wall, like, rah, like a regular Brooklyn girl with the head shaking and everything. And I was like, I want to fight her next now. I called my boxing promoter like that day. And like everyone's like, Heather, chill out. Like, just can we not? And then that's kind of how it was pressed to happen so fast. And through that, like my MMA contract has to allow for me to box also because I had an existing boxing contract. So Lou DeBella, my boxing promoter, had to get involved, and I guess it just made sense. She has a boxing promoter. I have a boxing promoter. Why
It,
not? I'll
it,
beat you up anywhere, girl.
I have a sense, I know Anna is a pretty humble person. I know her very well. I have a sense that Angelo Reyes, our trainer, was kind of behind this because I know he had talked to me about this long before your last fight. So, I didn't realize that you weren't aware of it until then, but I know he had talked about this was kind of a dream of his. So I suspect that, Angelo sort of got in with Lou DeBella and whoever else and worked on this.
I'm sure he said, call her out. She's from Brooklyn. She got an attitude. I know she'll take it. But the thing of it is like she was saying that, oh, we tried to get a boxing match with you for so long, but you know what? The business of boxing doesn't always, like, how was I supposed to know?
Right.
Like, I don't always, the fighters don't always get to hear what the promoters are talking about behind closed doors.
Sure.
So, it's not like you didn't come to my house and pick a fight with me and I said, oh, I don't want to fight. Like, come on, be professional sometimes.
The one thing that I wonder, MMA women seem to be treated equally to the men, the public, the media, everybody treats them the same. In boxing, that's not the case. You had a fight in 2016. I was in the Olympics at the time, so I didn't see it live, but I did see it on delay. And you fought Shelly Vincent, two undefeated fighters. It was a great fight. If anybody can go in, maybe YouTube has it. I know it's on the internet. It was a great fight between Heather and Shelly Vincent. And you haven't been on TV and boxing really ever since. Like, why don't women boxers get the kind of respect that women MMA fighters get?
Well, I think that boxing, I can only speculate, like boxing is still run by the same 10 guys who are still in charge of boxing back in the 80s and the 90s, in the 2000s. You have to remember that in like 1992, women weren't even allowed to spar in gyms, in boxing gyms. Like Bruce Silverglade, the owner of Gleason's, talks about how he used to have to open the gym after hours and let the girls come in and fight and box and train. And this was just in the late 80s, early 90s. And his partner used to go crazy and he used to say, Ira, but when I go to the bank, they don't ask me for girl money and boy money. They just ask me for the money. So I think that women's boxing is still like kind of in its infancy. And the people who are in charge now were in charge when women's, like the Christy Martin era, when women's boxing was just starting to come about, but there wasn't so much competition. So they have like a string of excuses from when women's boxing just wasn't as popular, or so to speak, as it is now. Right now, there are so many of us. We're moms, we're doctors, we're teachers, we're, firefighters, we're police officers. We are everywhere. You can almost go anywhere and find a woman who's somewhat involved in combat sports.
I know with this baby face, you're going to be shocked to hear this, but I am very old. I'm not as young as I look. And I covered boxing for a long time, and I was there when Christy Martin came up. And I remember it was almost like, okay, we're using women as ring card girls. Now maybe this will be like the next evolution. It wasn't taken seriously. But now it seems like, finally, on the fighting end of it, the fighters are really good, and there's a lot of really good women's fighters out there. And yet, I know Amanda Serrano got on Showtime, but she wasn't on the main channel. What do you think it'll take to take that next step?
Well, I think that Clarissa Shields has definitely surged women forward, right? Like she's headlined the show on Showtime, hyping up a really big fight between her and Christina Hammer that I'm sure will get some really great coverage and some great airtime. But we still have a long way to go, because it's not just the girls who are in the Olympics, like as talented as those girls who got the attention were. Again, you have to realize that 2012 was the first year that women's boxing was allowed in the Olympics. So you think about the girls like the Belinda Laracuentes and the Alicia Ashleys and Melissa Hernandez's, the girls from when I was coming up that were so good. I mean, so good, who never got the chance to be shown and to be aired. Those are girls who are still fighting, who still should be getting television time, but people don't know who they are.
Do you fight? I'll only ask you to speak for yourself, but do you fight with a little extra passion because hey, as a woman, that you have to put on a little bit better show than a man would? I'm going to read a quote that you gave in a second, but you fight with that fire, that you have, that I think is really interesting. And a lot of women fight that way. They don't fight, the technical, hey, hit and not be hit style. You get in there and your fights have blood and sweat and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Well, I think because a lot of times I was the only female on the show, and a lot of times I would be performing as the first time those fans or people who didn't know me would see a woman fight, like a women's boxing match. Right. And this wasn't my quote. Another woman had said once, people don't say if one woman fails that woman failed. If one woman fails, then all women fail.
Right.
So if I put on a really boring fight in front of a bunch of people who are seeing women's boxing for the first time, it's not that Heather Hardy is a bad fighter. It's that women's boxing sucks.
Yeah, that's not right.
So you have to be representative of the whole.
So now I do have this quote here that you gave. I read a story that I think it was done this week on Combat Press. Quote, I feel mean. Another takeaway from my last fight is that boxing is just like a sport. You go in, you score points, you try to make the person miss, and it's a hit but don't get hit mentality. I never really went into a boxing match with the kind of fire like, I want to hurt you. I learned in my last fight that you need to have that mentality in MMA. I don't just want to jab you in the face and touch you and make you think. I need to hit you and make you not want to come anywhere near me. This camp was really about bringing out a mean Heather. I don't want to score points. I want to hurt you. What is that?
Well, like a lot of times boxing for me, it starts to get fun. Like I box girls where I have to bite down and save my life, like, some of the world champions in there. And sometimes I box girls and the amateurs who just want me to help them out. And it becomes a game of movement, a game of chess, a game of, like I stick my glove on your face and say, snip my glove, because I know that I can move and you can't hit me. And I think that sometimes when you get kind of conditioned to that kind of boxing, you lose that mean streak that it's the same kind of want to win. Like I do want to win. I do want to beat you. I do want to humiliate you. But with MMA, it's different. With MMA, it's like, I want to break your arm. I want to cut off your oxygen so you can't breathe. So the ref has to jump in and save your life. It's a different thing. For me, anyway.
You're 1-1 in your MMA career. You won your debut in Madison Square Garden on a very big Bellator show. A lot of people were really jazzed about your fight. And then you got put in tough the next time out, Christina Williams. And I know I interviewed you before that fight, and you kept saying, I'm not sleeping on Christina. And everybody goes, they're going to give Heather an easy fight. They did not give Heather an easy fight. What do you and Anna both fought on that last card. She lost as well. So what do you expect from this fight? I would think just based on your styles, it's going to be a stand-up fight, right? I mean, it's not going to be a lot different than a boxing match, is it?
Well, the other thing I learned from my last fight was not to expect anything. Like, we went into my last fight really expecting that this girl was going to try to take me to the ground. My coaches were convinced. Like, in your first fight, the girl should have taken you to the ground, and she didn't. So we really were prepared for being dragged onto the ground and taken out the fight, and that never happened. So, like, all the things I kind of tried to prepare for didn't happen. So for this fight, we learned don't expect, right? Like, it makes sense. Yeah, she's going to come out and punch me in the face, but she's a black belt in Kempo. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. Anna is not, again, she's not a walkover fighter. She's not an easy read. I don't know what she's going to do. So, like, this time, I'm super prepared for if we stand up, we stand up. If she kicks, I'm ready. If she takes me down, I'm ready. But also not feeding off her. I have a game plan now. I know what I want to do. Previously, going into these MMA bouts, it was a matter of how can I survive until I can circle back to my boxing? How can I survive all the things I don't know how to do and bring it back to boxing? This time, I know how to do some mean stuff.
I can't wait to see that. That is next Friday. You are a survivor. You put an Instagram post up a little bit ago, and you talked about sleeping on a couch with your single daughter, and you said you realize that sleeping on a futon when you're 30 is not the worst thing. And you talked about how you're in that situation. Do you kind of feel like every day now, you're scratching and clawing? Is it a life of battle for you?
No, and I posted that because I think it's important for people to know that if you're not happy where you are, there is better things. Like as a woman, as a mother, I'm really in tune and connected to other mothers who I know are very unhappy with their life in their mid-30s, just being a mom. And women are often shamed when they don't feel fulfilled by just parenthood. And I felt that. I felt like when I was a wife and I was a mother, like, I love being a mom, but I just needed more. And the fact that I was married and had health insurance and a pension and got to go to Target every weekend and buy all this crap I didn't need, I would never trade sleeping on my couch, but living my dreams
Right.
for that comfort and security and safety of the life that everyone says you should have. So I don't post things like that to make people think like, wow, Heather Hardy sleeps on a couch. Wow, her life is tough. It's not about that. Right. It's about making other women know that it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's better to go out and give yourself all the things that you deserve than to be afraid to, because you might lose what you have.
Some people may not know that you're a survivor of a sexual assault. And I wonder, with the Me Too movement going on, and that is I'm so gratified to see that people are standing up and speaking out. And, the Harvey Weinstein thing, I think, sort of opened this whole thing up. Do you worry about your daughter? Your daughter's going to be in junior high next year, if I'm not mistaken.
She's going to be in high school.
Right, high school. Okay, so how do you, like as a mom, like what you went through in that horrific experience you had being assaulted. How do you, let your daughter understand that the world is not always a nice place, but yet you don't want to unnecessarily scare her and make her fearful? It's a tough dance, isn't it?
It is, but the society and the times that are living in, like you mentioned, the Me Too movement. Like, what is the point of that? The point of the Me Too movement, one of the worst parts of being raped, being sexually assaulted, or being violated, being abused, is that you feel so isolated and alone, and you feel like this happened to me because I'm bad, I'm wrong, something is wrong with me, and that's why this happened. And it's a very common feeling for women and men who go through that. And the Me Too movement doesn't just stand to say, hey, this guy is bad, this is what he did to me. It's to say, I'm not bad, and you're not bad right. either if this happened to you. And what that encourages is it encourages people to talk about it, to be vocal about it. When you have all these women who are standing up talking about the men in Hollywood who are just horrible humans, it not only frees them, but it prevents other men thinking like, well, now everyone's going to know, because the old, it's your fault, you're bad, isn't going to work anymore.
Sure.
Like if things like this are serving as a deterrent, encouraging women to speak up and not feel dirty or or isolated or at fault, then the movement has won. We're in a different time. Like, we're almost conditioning our kids not to stay silent about it, not to be quiet, not to be ashamed. Whereas 30 years ago, our parents were telling us, you know,
Mm.
they didn't want it to be circulated around the neighborhood that that's what happened.
Well, that, I mean, I'm glad that you're speaking out. You have been vocal about this, and I commend you for, for doing that. Has it, is that what led you to get into fighting? Because did you just have something inside of you as a result of what happened to you that led you to fighting?
Not really. I think that fighting was like a natural thing for me. Like, I've been knocked down quite a few times in my life and find the resiliency to get back up, right? And I think that it just translated the very first time I found boxing. I found myself inside a ring and was able to take a beating and then give one worse back. um, I think that martial arts, boxing, jujitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, all those things give women a different kind of confidence. And it's not a confidence about how strong you are or how physically able you are to take care of yourself, but rather you know what you can endure. Like, you put your body through such amounts of stress, but still come out feeling great at the end. And it pushes us to succeed through other aspects of life. You see how far you can go.
You know, when I hear you talk, I was thinking of, so much like Ronda Rousey when she came up in the UFC the first time. She was outspoken on some of these issues, and I thought about it then. You don't hear men talking about those kind of issues, but the women have to do it, and I'm glad. Even I think of discriminatory racist issues. A lot of times, fighters who were discriminated against because of their race or their religion or whatever it might be that they're discriminated against, they don't speak up. But women are doing it, and I think I commend you and I commend other women for doing it. Do you feel like by speaking that you're encouraging your daughter and other people to feel like they can be free to speak too?
Yeah, I think that change only comes when people are uncomfortable. And you know what? When that Me Too movement started, people were uncomfortable. People didn't want to hear it. Like, there was this joke that went around, I forget, who was it? Was it David Cassidy that just died? And
Yes.
like, right, and then like his name was on the news and everyone went, "Oh my God, please tell me he's not a rapist." And they were like, "No, he's dead." Oh, thank God. Like,
Yeah.
it got to where you were like, who's next? Who's next? Who's the next guy I have to hate? Like, I think that people have to be uncomfortable to make times change. And it got to a point where, you know what? Women are in the workplace. Women are fighters. Women are police officers and teachers and doctors and lawyers, and we do all the friggin' things. So leave us alone, man. Pay us the right. Pay us what we deserve.
Well, and that's the last thing we'll touch on for this fight with Ana Julaton. Are you being paid better? I mean, it's a fight that, hey, the fact that you're doing it twice, there must be some interest in it among people on both sports. Are you being paid better as a result because of your success and your notoriety?
Well, I'm being paid. The scale is a little bit different, right? Like, I am being paid better than some other fighters, but I'm not making enough money yet where I don't have to hang up the phone with you and then go back to work
Right.
because I've been working all day. Like, the fight money is nice, especially like I have the opportunity to get sponsorships since MMA is televised, which is huge, different from boxing. I've never had a sponsor in boxing before. So the ability to make that money is nice, but I'm not quite up there where I could sleep late on Sundays yet.
Well, maybe a knockout of Ana Julaton next week, next Friday night on the Paramount Network will do it for you. Any predictions on the show?
I just know I'm going to beat her up.
Well, Ana is a nice person. I hope you don't beat her up too badly because we don't want to see her suffer unnecessarily. But good luck to you, Heather, and congratulations on a great career and really appreciate your
Oh,
time.
thank you so much.